Welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art.
All right, welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast. I've got full bed head, but it's okay. So,
Art, you got great hair, dude. I've got hair jealousy.
I literally I didn't just roll out of bed, but it's been a morning. It's been a morning, but yeah, here we are. Excited to be here. Todd, you have a dog you've been working with that we're going to watch the videos on.
Yep.
Kind of walk you through that, and I'll share with you what I've been working on.
Perfect. So I've started, I was just explaining to Art, I've started doing some videoing through the appointments so that the clients have information to take home. You know, there's a lot of subtleties that we offer when we start to handle the dog that there's no way the owner can take in it. I think the percentage is 10 or 20% that's retained when you learn something, best case scenario?
I mean, was it 80% of the stats are made up on the spot? So
right. No, I think that's 67% made up on the spot. But yeah, it's tricky. So I've been doing some videos. So here's a video. Here's the story that I have behind the video. So it is a former client who has unfortunately had some medical issues. There's been some strokes and some brain issues. So there are physical limitations. And they adopted, they believe, a 4-year-old Boston Terrier. They said they thought the dog was younger, but they said a 4-year-old Boston Terrier. So when they get here, I don't really tend to know too much. I don't know about you, Art. I don't know a whole lot about the appointments when they show up. I'll know some vague generalities, but I don't really know specifics.
Same.
I don't choose to.
Yeah.
And so when they came up, the first thing you see is this first video. So why don't you play that video? This is what walked up. So this is what I'm starting my appointment with that I have to start to solve. How am I going to help this dog? So you guys all do your best. Hello there, Miss Alicia. You guys all do your best on what you would do to handle this. I'm just videotaping her right now.
Okay.
What would be your go-to moves here, guys? You okay, Alicia? You need help up the steps?
Normally I would just kind of hold on to
Starting
her
to fall. Gotcha.
What's that?
until she
The owner started to fall. Miss Alicia, have a seat right here.
But I'd kind of keep loosely hold of her until she,
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
unless she started jumping on someone.
Okay, so
And then
this is what you'll do here?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take her inside. Well, everybody can go inside here, and then we'll actually, I'll tell you what, why don't you guys sit over there for me for a couple minutes? Let everybody settle for a minute.
Come here. Over here.
So you
Yeah.
realize
All right.
Okay, so to me, I'm hit with just literally this railroad of information. Okay, so I have this dog coming up, and the word in my mind I use is chaos. So the really high-strung, obviously anxious, high-strung, hyper. There's a classic hyper right there. And I have a woman who comes up now. When I said, do you need help up? And I jumped up, she started to fall backwards. I don't have railings on my stairs. And she's got balance issues. She's had strokes and seizures and so forth. And she started to fall backwards. So the reason to me this is important is that this energy is tangible. Okay. Now those are her parents. Now her mom has this really type A projection of trying to keep everything under control. As you could imagine, as an older mom now that you have this, she's probably 35, maybe older, 40-year-old daughter who was, military vet. I mean, fully capable. And now we're semi disabled. Right.
So just so I'm clear, there's the mother and daughter, and the daughter's 35, right?
35, 45, somewhere in there.
And who's had the stroke? The mother's had the strokes, right?
The daughter.
Oh, wow.
The daughter. So you were seeing the mother bending over the dog, and behind her was her husband, and it's their daughter who was my previous client, who is 35 to 45, who has had strokes and seizures. In fact, the last appointment had to be canceled because of a stroke. And so, and when she walks up and she starts to fall backwards, in my mind, I'm going, okay, here's what I have. I have a mother and a father who are wanting their daughter to, get well. So we get this dog. Now the daughter's they're connected to the dog. And when they start talking, the part that I didn't record any of this part, but they start talking for a little while. And after about 30 minutes, I go, do you guys do you want to say what you really want to say? Do you guys really want to describe what's going on and say what you want to say? Or do you guys want to tell me that the dog's smart and it's getting better and all this stuff? I go, that's fucking nonsense. I go, this is chaos at its highest level, guys.
Yeah.
I go, we are taxed with what we have. And I even said this. Because I said I would take the dog in. I go, but I'm not going to take the dog in because my wife's sick. And I'm not going to bring this energy around my wife. I go, because this energy is almost neurologically damaging for those who are around it. Because when you were around this for a little bit, this thing was, you'll see it in a minute. It can't stop. It physically could not stop at all.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm like, realistically out of the gates, like, guys, we have to understand. I have somebody who's like, you're physically limited. Your movement is highly limited. So she's asking me specific technical questions like, so where did you touch? I'm like, you know how fast I had to react to decide to touch right there? So I'm having to formulate a plan, right? Right away, I'm having to formulate a plan. So we have to move into tools.
Right.
So we have to get into how we use tools. So I'll show you this next clip and then I'll tell you what we did after that. So the next clip would be the one where it's tied to the door. And I start figuring out, okay, here's what we kind of have to do.
Okay. Oh, hang on. I got to do live here.
Meets that pressure, but it wants to continue
let me rewind
moving
it.
forward. When obsession meets that pressure, but it wants to continue moving forward, it starts to pull anything that puts pressure on it. You notice when you put your hand on her and push, she pushes against it. So the brain has essentially been counter-conditioned or conditioned improperly that when pressure is applied, move against it. Now what that means is that when you pull on a leash, if you pull to the right, which direction does she pull?
The other way.
To the left. And all through, right?
Yep.
Harness amplifies it, but she's doing it with what's here. So the only option you have is to go to a device she's probably not felt, which is an e-collar. Now, it's not to shock her. It's that the e-collar also applies physical pressure, but it's one she's never felt. And since I'm doing it for the first time, I'm going to program it using food. So when I tap and apply pressure, she'll move back towards the pressure. I only have to use food once or twice if she's crazy food driven, but what I'm doing is I'm getting the brain, it's like a phone setting, it's like a code. I'm saying, hey, this thing you feel, move towards it, because this setting right here is, like, I'm a leash ninja. I'm not going near that. I would have to run her first and really break it down. And there's ways that are going to, and then you guys, the consistency needed. So I'm going right to something that's easier to use
And they can't repeat it.
new to feel.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's a key. That's a key thing where the e-collar can equalize certain things where people lack an inability, and I think that's often overlooked quite a bit because if we'll see in the video, like, you know, once we'll show it when you used it, how that transition, because you can see the dog like completely disengaged, overexcited, not wanting to really connect, and how you kind of connect the food that has a good drive for it and the sensation of the e-collar. It's really good.
Tell me what you think about like what you've seen so far, Art. You know, you've been in these situations. What do you see? So the thing that was so crazy, and I want to get a video so people can see really, because everybody's, how do I stop my dog from pulling? Well, for starters, how bad has your dog opposed the pressure that you're applying, right? No matter the way it's there. And it gets to some point where I don't think it's realized that every time you pull on the leash, you're now in conflict. Is essentially what you're doing, right? There's all these little arguments because you pull one way and the dog goes the other way. And this dog, it wasn't coming from like a source of like a control, like a dominant type of way where you can feel it, like where they'll do it. This dog was just conditioned. You could feel that hundreds of thousands of steps have been taken with pressure, right? So there's tension, I feel tightness, and I get the next step. And for those maybe that aren't dog trainers that listen, I come from a source of what is motivating the dog because I want them to have it. And on a walk, it's the next step.
Right.
If the dog is feeling tension and pressure and takes the next step, doesn't matter if they're scared or excited, they become reinforced to move forward only understanding with pressure. And it creates that counter, that incorrect conditioning I was talking about. And this dog was bad, dude. Bad. And the other part is I know I can get it there. It would have taken me a little while, but I don't think they could have repeated it.
There was something you also said. You said the harness is amplified it and
Correct.
And what happens because where the point is at, where it's connected on the leash, which is on the back, they almost walk like a letter C, where that point is. So they're moving away from that point, and then their head and their butt kind of come around. Their head and their butt are like they're walking like a letter C, and that point is right in here, and they're just walking like this.
And they get associated to avoidance with you. So everything you do to offer direction gets conditioned as avoidance, which then makes the owners use more pressure. And we end up in these very physical, very tense oriented situations. Yeah. And what happens next? Reaction and so forth. So all these people ask questions. Well, how do I stop my dog from like barking on a leash? And they don't understand that it's the pulling on the leash that for the most part will fix the barking.
And to add to your point, when people see that, they say, I should shorten the leash at that moment. Sometimes I'm like, just give them a little more leash just so they can kind of straighten out their body a little bit. And sometimes that's what they're asking. And then that's really important also what you just said about how when they're conditioned, they're already avoiding the pressure. And then now they're associated with avoiding you. And then when they're off leash, they don't connect with you. And this dog is like completely all over the place, right? So if we're truly trying to get like some sort of connection with the dog, not that they don't have a connection with the dog, but in these situations, the dog just like, blows you up.
You know what conversation I had with him? Because this girl starts talking about this dog being a medical detection dog. And I said, can I point something out? And this is we're in the room. So we're an hour into the appointment. I said, this dog hasn't looked at any one of you the entire time. So this dog has not looked to any human that since it's been here once. So it was literally environmentally driven at a hyper state. And it was the fourth or fifth home. And to me, what I felt is that we had a dog that went in hyper, and it was actually, it had some submissive elements to it. It went in super hyper and everybody tried to control it, but nobody followed through. Nobody. So the hyperness won, and it bounced around from home to home. So as a result, the dog gets almost like I think like a foster kid, gets disconnected from being able to connect with people, and every home becomes compounding this controlling but not follow through thing worse, right?
Yeah.
I felt like when this was over, I actually was very proud of what I had ended up connecting in a couple levels. So the next one in sequence of things would be we went on a treadmill because I knew that I couldn't do anything with the dog. I did not video the treadmill. Now, just so you'll appreciate this, Art. The treadmill difficulty is only difficult based on the dog's perception. I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? For some dogs, it's climbing Mount Everest. And over time, you kind of just know. And I told him, I go, look, this dog's jumping on a moving treadmill and he's not even going to have an issue with it. This is going to be kind of laughable. Between me saying that and getting back there, a toy came into play. And so he had a toy in his mouth. He jumped on a moving treadmill and walked on it with a toy in his mouth. First time, first repetition, right? Like right away. So we had him on a treadmill for a considerable amount of time. And now you can play the video, and this is what's next.
Okay. By the way, that's actually a really good idea because they put a toy in her mouth, and those dogs, the way she was already breathing, because of excitement, you can actually almost force the breathing through the nose at that point.
She did slow down with a toy in her mouth. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so that's also a really good plan of action, because the first thing that I saw when the way she was moving, I was like, it's tricky if you put that dog on a treadmill. You have to be very strategic when you do it, because one, you don't want to do it too fast, because you're going to basically emulate the breathing pattern that she already has, right? And so we want to change that breathing pattern a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and play the one of the treadmill, or is it not the treadmill? It's the one with the ball, right?
Yeah, I'm next to the treadmill, and she's got a toy in her mouth.
So when you have a dog, people always ask, can I play rough? If you can't stop this, no. But you have to have an off switch. Don't pull. You can see she's vibrating. So, now she has to completely turn it off. Now this has to stay here. You don't hide it. And the eye contact has to come back to you to tell her that we're shutting this off. Now, for her, this can be a fun way to deal with some of the other reactions because you're literally playing off switch with her.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense? Mm-hmm. So when she gives you a little bit more, see how she's blinking? She's focused on me. There you go. There you go. She can have it.
Pause it for a second.
That's how one way during play.
When I looked at that video again, there was a time I could have given it about 2 seconds earlier for better timing. But what had happened?
Talking to them too, so
True.
Give yourself some grace.
There was a step in between here. So this dog's also extremely reactive towards other dogs. So I brought my dogs out several times and she just blew a flipping gasket. And the only way I was able to get her to settle a little bit was to grab the harness and cradle her on my arm and kind of go down with it and create a calming effect with it. The other thing I could do is if she blew a lid is I could go up and I could almost like clamshell her with my hands. And what it was is it wasn't until she felt complete physical stillness that she had any chance of relaxing. And there was nothing else that was really you could do because she had so much opposition to any form of like physical pressure against her from the leash or anything. And so I would just like use this part and then she would relax. But it took a couple times. So for when this happened, and when you hit play, you'll hear this guy's going, this is where the dude really went, oh shit, was when I was able to stop her and get the toy. And you'll hear him start to say it, but then I have to intervene because she goes to take the toy and run away. So go ahead and play it.
During play to regulate some of those intensities that she has. So when you look at this, you'll be able to see that. Okay.
Well, I'm really impressed with the fact that you've gotten her to the point where she.
Okay. Well, it got cut off there.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that was a shorter clip. So what happens right there is he starts to say, what he's seen. And I kind of just put my hand touch the toy with my finger and she kind of moves a little bit and my hand's there. And then she grabs the toy and goes to jump off as he's saying something. Then I go, hold on. And I use the leash and I bring her back. And then I touch the toy and we go through it again, but it's a different energy because I'm not playing with her. I wasn't engaging play. So it's just the holding and waiting. People ask all the time how you get something. I just go to the hold and wait and then go back to that. And then she lets go and goes through the process again. And you can use that in play. You can teach your dogs to stop and relax so that you can use that in other areas.
Yeah. And
vice versa. So we really took this dog through some fucking paces, man, because of all the things I was trying to get out of it. Now, a normal circumstance, we would have done this on a walk. I would have started with a walk, but
you got to
do what you can do. And the other thing I was trying to do is I was trying to show these people, all right, well, I don't have
a dog.
Sorry, my bad.
No, that's okay. I was going to say that I'm trying to create a strategy for them. So I'm like, well, you guys can use a treadmill. I have this tool that can hook on even a mobile scooter. That bike tow leash will hook on anything. It'll go on wheelchairs. It'll hook on mobile devices. And then I was saying, okay, now we have to work with heavy vests and we can do things here, a lot of play. And then the last one is the e-collar. So they're going to come back so I can do more e-collar work with them so they can start conditioning the e-collar because that's really the only chance they have of being successful outside. So you can show that one.
Okay, let me see if it'll play because it's kind of a long video. Let's see if it'll work.
I can edit one real quick and send you a shorter one.
This may work. Let's see.
Okay.
People always ask, can I play rough?
That's the different one. Hang on. It is 1674. Yeah, it's not playing.
I'm using the
here we go. It is.
Dog. I'm on level 2. The way that I'm introducing it is by getting the dog to understand that the sensation or the pressure of the collar is actually connected to food. This dog was really chaotic. I have a video from earlier. And just in this short...
I want to just point something out real quick. The dog is starting to connect with you already, right here.
Yeah, thank you.
And you haven't really... when the dog was tethered to the door, when you were doing, when you did the toy, it was starting to connect a little bit. But before, it was just, it was all over the place.
So as soon as the dog moves away a little bit, tapping, so she comes to me. As soon as she started to move in my direction, I stopped holding the button. Okay, you want it right here, holding, right there, treating. It's called tap and treat. It's an easy way for a dog with this type of energy to focus, especially because she has a food motivation. So all I'm doing is just kind of moving out. Let's go.
So nice.
It's also the beginning of how you teach recall and so forth. You end up using this to be able to have that conversation. Let's go. There we go. Let's go. Good girl. So it's a language. So when you guys showed up, like I said, the pressure of the leash was unbelievably confusing. In fact, there's 180 degrees opposite. So if you don't change the delivery, you can't change the outcome. Doesn't even make sense, no?
Very much.
Thank you. To me, when she goes into this mode, this is the happy mode.
Yeah.
Right? As soon as she goes into that mode, when she starts pacing and stuff, if you look at her face, it's like it becomes
Softer.
Yeah, so that's why the more that we help them understand what we need, that settles them considerably, and then that's what we're building upon.
So her eyes are this big instead of like this.
Yeah.
We know she's in that.
And they're red too. You'll see, even right here, look. That part of her brain needs to be eliminated. Honestly, just this. And you'll do like 3 to 5 minute sessions doing exactly what I'm doing.
You can stop.
Okay.
This dog is so, if you lost focus for this dog, you could see. Like you had to be on for this dog to stay on. And then as soon as he got near the owners, you could see it went back. And I didn't want to keep using it there because it was, I needed a little bit more of a stillness there. But that was, to me, that was really okay. This is what this particular case needs. So what do you think?
It was really good because the dog became a lot softer, like just the head and the body language is a lot softer. And I think that, or I've seen where people like trash on the e-call, like, oh, it's shutting the dog down. This dog's not shut down. Now, people may see like the ears back and they say, oh my God, the dog is, but this dog is like it went from like being chaotic to bringing all the energy together.
His face when he looked at me right there, when he walked up and I knelt down, that was probably one of the few moments that dog had felt peace in a very, very long time. Yeah. You could see it. The vibration was gone. I mean, yeah, there's one of these dogs that comes in and is probably 3 or 4 degrees warm. They're so amped and anxious.
Yeah, but everything was really nice. And even how you explained it, how you connected it to the food, but also how you used, because you said the dog was like crazy for food, like how we can also create a different association with the food, Mm-hmm. Also, another thing you said is that you stopped it there because of you don't want the owners to be associated with that. Explain that a little bit more.
Well, the dog was getting close to the owners and pulling to the owners, and so you have a conflict right there. I'm trying to teach the dog not to pull and understand the pressure, and I just had some progress. But if I'm tapping when it's right next to the owners, it associates it to the owners at that particular moment, and it
gets confused. Where do I go? Correct.
And so when you're transitioning the e-collar, especially, this is where you're trying to hand it back. The dog, the fuck, who do I follow? But the other thing was too is I could tell that I had a nice moment that I wanted to do my best to end with, mm-hmm. And then they got excited again as well. So there's multiple factors, and I'm like to keep those beginning sessions with that pretty short.
Yeah. When I do stuff like that, another thing that I'll do, which I assume you'll do this, or maybe have a different way of doing it, where I'll have them hold the leash, have the food, but I have the remote, so that the timing is, and they, I'll listen for them when they call the dog, so that the dog knows to come back to them. Then I'll put the remote in their hands, or I'll even I use the e-collar technologies, and I can attach a little sound box to it.
So I've seen that to where you can hear it.
Yes.
You could tell, when I was holding it up, I was tapping. Yeah. That's the way I can show them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting case. Now, on top of that, remember our appointment, our talk last week, we were talking about making sure that you take care of yourself. After that, I went on a walk for about 15 minutes. I did a bunch of breathing, and then I took the dogs out because they had to deal with that dog too. And I had to let it go. Because that's the type of dog that can give me a headache, mm-hmm. some nausea afterwards, because they're pretty intense, man. It's that movement and breathing and constant. So if you didn't like just let him walk around, he was like, he was almost in a run. And as soon as he went into a room, his focus would be on the door that he came in, but he wasn't going anywhere. And then he'd get out and he'd turn and go back the other way. Like his brain was just moving, but it never had a purpose. Like there was no focus to the brain. And then it just becomes its own like excited type of thing.
It's good work, man. It's good stuff.
Oh.
Good to see. Yeah, I can see how that dog would make you sick. When you sent me the video, the videos, and I saw that first one, I was like, oh man, this is crazy. Because I've worked with a Boston Terrier like that one time, and we ended up using e-collar. This dog was extremely aggressive too with other dogs. And finding a muzzle that fits a Boston Terrier is somewhat.
Well, it looks like a beekeeper mask, right? Those ones for those in the Frenchies are kind of funny looking.
And so this dog was named Zola, and I remember I had her in the backyard, and she'd been doing really good. And I don't know what triggered it. I think I might have it on video somewhere. And she went after our dog Luna, and Luna was like running away. And we had this gas meter in the backyard, and the dog had a leash on, but it was just a flat collar attached to like the clasp. It wasn't a slip lead. And when Luna ran around the gas meter. This dog got the leash stuck on the gas meter and like clotheslined it, right? And then ran around it again and wrapped itself. And I'm like running over there, and the dog's like flailing, flipping out, So I had to go and scoop her up and like take the leash off. And her eyes got super red, because she was like freaking out and stuff like that. And so it was kind of a scary moment, but luckily.
You're lucky, dude.
I know.
You're lucky you didn't get attacked. Like, you know what I mean? I read a story, and we've all been there where a dog gets tangled and panics. And I read a story where a dog got tangled on a fence post, and a young girl, it was her dog, it was a pity, it got tangled on a fence post and panicked, and she tried to help it, and it killed her.
Killed the woman?
Killed the girl. Wow. Because when they're tangled like that, that panic is fucking gnarly, and they have no idea what's causing it. So when you come in and touch them, they can easily think that, is this part of it? And if they can get to you I had one too. I had a dog jump over his name was Buddha. It was a German Shepherd. He jumped over a fence, and it was a small chain link fence. You know how the chain link fence have those little metal loops? Mm-hmm. The webbing of his toe got impaled. He was hanging upside down.
Oh my God.
From on the other side of the fence. And as the dog, so the fence is here, he's hanging on this side, and the dogs are on this side are coming up to him, and he's like, he's freaking out at them. And fortunately, I was able to unhook him to get him off. But dude, I was like, oh fuck, here we go. And it's your relationship at that point matters a lot too, though.
Yeah.
So, that things were, and I was able to unhook him and get him down. It's amazing how some of these things in our careers, you just never let those things go.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Yeah. All right. So what's that?
What about your dog? The one you've been working with?
So I want to say something about Dexter. Dexter has really ignited this spark in me that I felt maybe was missing. And I think I might have mentioned that last week, but he's been coming around slowly, but really like just the progress that he's been making has been amazing. And so I met with the owners, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes, but I met with the owners yesterday. But kind of like my whole goal with him is just to get him moving, because he just would like either shut down, or if he saw something that he was overwhelmed with, he would move towards it to create the space, right?
Yeah.
And that's what he wants.
Does he react, or does he just move towards it with intensity?
Both. Like he's very vocal. And so since he's been here, he's kind of been like, I don't know. But I use that to my advantage in the sense of like, he won't react. So I can extinguish it real quick. Right. And he was also the dog. If I try to take him on a walk, he would just shut down. He'd plop down on the ground. And so I got him to like the end of my sidewalk, and then he would plop down. I gave him a little pressure, but he's one of those that opposes pressure, kind of like this other dog. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, how can I not get him to the point where he goes all the way down? And so kind of just shorten up the leash a little bit, and I'd walk. And as soon as he tried to put his head down, I'd carry him through it, and then get that momentum. He would like move. And I was like, all right, like we got this momentum. Let's keep going. And so we ended up going to the end of the street. coming back. I mean, that was like, the process, like, oh, we're making some progress. Then we started doing it where we take him further around the block, and then he started to do it pretty good. So then now he's moving. So now I don't have to like give him pressure. He just kind of flows with me. Then I was like, okay, now he has reaction to dogs. So let's go and set that whole thing up. So Anne went outside with our dog Nala.
Can I ask a question, Art?
Yeah.
Are you, when you're telling me you're doing these things, is it just you and him, or is he
Yes.
with other dogs?
No, just me and him for right now.
Okay.
Because his thing was like, he wouldn't even move with me. He would just like shut down. So I was like, I got to get him to move. And I told the owners, I have to get him to move. And I was like thinking, maybe I'll take him on a swimming, take him swimming to get his body moving. But I'm just trying to figure out something. But luckily he started to move. And so that was a good thing. And then what we started to do was I had Anne go outside with Nala across the street to kind of create this surprise. There's a dog there, and it hadn't met my wife either. And so we'll go outside and he sees the dogs and he goes like perks up, and I'm like kind of move into him. And I'm at the point now where I can move into him because he won't react to me anymore. And so he's really good. Then we walked kind of back and forth. And then I said, come on, let's go on a walk. And so I told Anne, just walk in front of me. And the dog just no reaction. But now he's starting to get, because he doesn't really use his nose because he's always like pushing things away. So by moving in this way, the dog is not coming towards him. It's actually going in the same direction. But he's also able to kind of get the smell of Nala and stuff like that. And so that was like the first thing. And I was like, oh, finally, like this was like a breaking point. It's as simple as it sounds. It was just a breaking point for him. It was the thing that allowed him to like finally like, I can be comfortable right around the things that bother me.
Yeah, you broke the seal. So they all kind of have, there's that moment, that watershed moment where you're like, okay, we have this. This is now everything we can start to build upon.
Yeah,
that avoidance is huge, dude. I mean, if they're not in any form of a social state, and I mean, the inability to something as simple as that.
Yeah,
nice.
But he's still stuck in avoidance, and that's the thing that.
You mean with other dogs or just in general? Okay.
Yeah. So what I started to do, since he was starting to be a little more comfortable, so I brought Nala with me, and I kind of just did an intro, and I did a pack walk with both of them. Again, pack walk, saves the day, right? Because it's so valuable because they're not facing each other, but he's close. And so I'm like the buffer. I have Dexter on one side, I have Nala on the other side. And, then, we're just walking. I walk around this and he doesn't have a reaction, does not even look over there. They're just walking. But he's getting comfortable with the dog next. He's not really in avoidance those moments. As long as he's moving, he doesn't be in avoidance. When he becomes still, that he really goes into avoidance. So as long as we're kind of moving together, he's actually fine. Then what I started to do is like, I started to put him still in my right hand, but I'm like walking backwards and I brought Nogi at this time and Buddha. And so I now he's close to them. So he's like at their butt. So he can't really go on top of them, which he hasn't really done. But he's like, I'm putting him in a position where he has to smell the dog, and Buddha's walking and I'm just like walking backwards and they're just like flowing. So it's like his face and the Buddha's butt. Same thing with Nogi. So I just started doing that and he started to really follow that. And he's doing really good with that. The only thing that I'm having trouble with is when I'm in the backyard and I had Buddha we went on a really long walk. Actually, let me back up before I get to that point. Then I took him to a field. We have the 3.5 acre field that we use for our social. So I woke up early one morning and I took Honey, Nogi, and Buddha, those 3 dogs, and I had him on a muzzle and got my dogs out. They were just kind of playing, running around. And then I got him out because he was in a crate. And like enclosed crate, got him out, and then he was just kind of like, I don't really know what to do here. And I just kept him moving, and I had Adrian with me, who's one of our trainers, and he got all my dogs, and I had Dexter on a long line. We just kind of just moved one in the field and came back, and just did like this pack walk going back and forth. And then I let the leashes go of our dogs, and they were kind of running around, and he was just kind of like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here. But he started to be comfortable with the dogs around him. And then my dogs would, and then I was like, okay, let me get the dogs to run. So I'd recall them and they would all run back towards me. And he would just kind of like, I don't really know what to do here. And so there was a moment though, like Buddha's, as obnoxious as he is, he's really good at bringing out the happy-go-lucky side of a dog, meaning he gets pushy. And if a dog goes after him, he doesn't take it personal. But this Dexter, like for a moment, like he like did this play bout and then he was like, oh, I don't really like that much. And then he's like, I'm going to go back to avoidance. It's the weirdest thing. And so he's been going, like he enjoys happiness for a moment. And then he's like, this is weird for me. I don't really know how to experience this.
That's like me.
Yeah. Come get him.
I get it, dude. I understand.
And so then I came home, and then I had him in the backyard, all of them together. And he just like was on, he was kind of tired, and I was like, I need for him just to like let it go. So it took me a good while. We're in the backyard, and I had him on a cot, and he would like sit down, and then he would stand up. He would sit down. So then at this point, I'm like, okay, I need to help him out. So kind of give him a little pressure. He kind of sits down, and I want him to lay down, and you can see that he wants to lay down. So he like puts his paw, and he gets back up. Puts his paw, and he gets back up. And I was like, and this went on for like a good 30 minutes, right? And I was like, dude, you've got to let it go. You've got to let it go. So then at this point, I'm like, okay, we're 30 minutes in. Let me help you out. So I give him a little bit of pressure on his shoulder and, oppositional on the leash. And he kind of, because I've already seen he wants to do it. And then he finally lays down, he lets go, and he gets back up. I was like, all right, so let me do it again. And then he finally just lets go. But then he finally lays down, and then he shifts his body. Like he's still not like relaxed. He's kind of like his legs are under his body, and then finally kicks his hip out. But then he turns his back towards the dogs. I was like, still on avoidance. Like he's just like, I want nothing to do with that. But he's not, other than that sign, like, because the owners, like, they messaged me because they saw the video, and they're like, oh my God, we just realized that he's been experiencing avoidance his entire life. And, because when they see it in that context, they don't, because they're like, it just came out of nowhere, when it really didn't. It's just kind of been building up, And so that was, what we've been doing. But then the owners came over last night, and I said, hey, I want you guys to hide behind your car, just kind of be at a distance. I'm going to take him on a walk, and I want you to see when he starts to, like, when I feel he's about to shut down, like how I'm going to just keep him moving. Right. And so I bring him out, they're hiding, and then they kind of walk behind me at a distance. All of a sudden he turns around, he sees them, and gets super excited. Like it's crazy. I'm like, well, I don't know how we're going to do this one. So anyways, I said, all right, go and come over here. Just walk with me. And he's just like super like into them. You know what I mean? And we go 2 houses down, and there's a lady, we have a crazy like cat lady, but she's actually a crazy dog lady. Who lets her like chihuahua off leash all the time, and she walks out right when we're in front of her house, and the freaking chihuahua comes out. I'm like, fuck, like, but this is real life, right?
It's good, bad, right? Yeah.
Right. And so this for the first time, the dog loses it, but he also carried the energy from seeing them. And then we go 2 houses down, and then he's already amped up, and then he sees this. I was like, all right, we got to work this. Meanwhile, this lady's like, why is that dog on muzzle? And just asking. I'm just like, just blowing her, just like blowing her off. And so then I keep working. And he gets to a point where he goes, he kind of settles a little bit. Oh, all right, let's move. And then he just like goes back to being like relaxed, have a nice walk. And they're like, oh my God, like we've never seen him recover that fast. I'm like, we have to get him to recover. And so then we take him to the end of the street. He goes, there's one spot he likes to pee and poop. And then we ended up, then I said, all right, let's go back and let's get a dog. Let's go around the block and let's get a dog. And so they'd never seen him around another dog other than their own dog. I get Buddha, and we're like walking around. Actually, no, I had Nogi with me.
What's his relationship like with his other dog and his family?
So, and here's the other thing, is that they showed me videos when he was a puppy. Normal dog. Like, I would adopt this dog if I saw it, like the way it was playing. Very playful, very happy-go-lucky. But they don't know, like, what the shift was. Like, he doesn't really, like, he has a taste of like what joy is. Then he's like, I don't like this. I've never experienced this for prolonged periods of time. But with the other dog, like, he'll kind of play, like likes to try and engage some play with the dog, but then stops. And I even saw like how the dog played with the litter mates, like just a normal dog. And I was like, I told the owners last night before they went home, I was like, look, I want you to
hold on a second. So he gets excited, right? So he sees the owners and he gets excited. At any point, did it look like something jolted him? Could it be a weird thing that got connected to pain? Maybe broke his tail, and wagging his tail hurt like shit. And you know what I mean? Or something in his spine got out of whack. So when he would wiggle, or whenever something that was the expression of acceptance happened, do you know what I'm saying? Is there a possibility of any of that?
Yeah. Yes. So get this. And I've noticed he trips a lot on one leg. He trips a lot. And we'll be walking. All of a sudden he just like trips all the time. And he has long nails too. I haven't been able to cut his nails. and I don't know if it's the nails or something's going on, right? And so this is the question in my mind. So one of the videos they sent me when he was a puppy, he's running and he trips, same leg. So I'm wondering if like something is off within like his equilibrium or something is going on, you know?
He could have easily made it. Let's play this out. He easily could made the unintended association of that pain or experience coming from other dogs.
Right. And that's another thing I said, look, I go, what I'm seeing here is very similar to how a dog reacts when they get attacked in a dog park. It's very similar.
Yeah.
I go, and I said, was he in boarding and he got attacked? I'm like, not that we're aware of, you know? And so it's one of those things that he has that what's up, Blueberry? He has the behavior of how a dog would react. And I said, he looks like he wants dogs to go away so much.
Yeah.
That he has that reaction, but it's almost similar like as he was attacked by a dog. And so I was like, look, if you guys can do me a favor, I want you to go, because they have a shit ton of videos on their phone. I was like, go through your videos and start trying to figure out at what point you saw that shift, because it's a huge, it's 9-day difference, the shift, you know? And so I really want them to kind of invest in, so that's like their homework, is to kind of figure that out. And I go, not that it really matters, but at least we have an answer. I go, it's not going to change what I do, but you know.
Well, maybe though, this is where maybe it would, because the speed of it, like, you know, we're used to certain forms of turnaround, because there could still be pain present.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing is you're actually moving the needle exactly as you should. And when you get to that point where he should be breaking free, the pain brings him back. Right. The pain will always be a reminder stronger than we can influence, is what I believe. It's because they don't understand it. It's there, it's powerful. And when this happens, I feel that. That's it. So I don't know. That's interesting, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there's possibly something going on, but most of vets can't catch stuff like that.
Yeah. Like, is it maybe is it a neurological condition or something like that? Yeah.
Check this out. I actually worked with a massive, really young massive, that used to stay with us quite a bit, and the owners were friends of mine. And, you know, they were like, something's off, like with him, like he's just not acting the same. And so I remember I went over there and I was like, this is not good. Like, I just remember telling myself, this is not good. Cause I knew him, and I was like, I want you to go get some like blood work, and something's going on neurologically. Vets, you know, did blood work, went to 3 different vets. Nobody could find anything. Come to find out, he did have a brain tumor. You know, he had a brain tumor, and but I just knew. And a lot of times, I'm not saying this dog's a brain tumor, but there is something going on that that no one's been able to find. And there is something, I believe that there's something possibly medically going on, whether it's pain, spine. I just think that there's something going on. And
interesting. And so what are you going to get? Are you going to continue kind of moving at the same pace, continue doing the same things?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have my plan of action is just to get him around, you know, the dogs, but I need for him to be a little bit more like, yes, he moves with them. That's great. But I need for him to make that next step to kind of like, hey, I'm actually enjoying this, and stay there.
Yep. I know exactly what you mean. And it's interesting, like over time you learn when you can, like, I always knew when I was like, okay, these dogs are fine. Like you can tell, like, the dog, no matter how it came in, like you get really good at letting that go. And then you're like, okay, what's the checklist of what I need to see before I can turn my back on this dog, you know, before I can trust that I can turn my back for 30 seconds. And in that time, I'm not going to lose track of what happened. Yeah. And that moving into them and then, you know, and not being offended when little things happen is interesting. That's cool.
It's been fun. Like, I've really enjoyed, you know, when you ask me like, oh, why'd you take this dog? You know, I don't know. Something was telling me to do it. And it's really brought back this creative side. Like, okay, what can I do? And then I start really thinking about, maybe I'll take him swimming. Maybe I'll do this, kind of just like, we talk about change of strategies, things like that. And so I feel that we're on the right track with him. And oh, by the way, also get this. The owners sent me a message last night on Instagram, and they're like, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but we actually met you like in 2016 or 17. We met you at a workshop. And and it was at a it was a positive reinforcement trainer that I actually really like a lot, and it was at her workshop. But I just felt that the techniques that they were learning in this workshop were not beneficial for them and their dog. And I just remember telling myself, God, I really wish I had a hand. I wish I could help this dog out, because I could see like the potential of this dog. And I guess the dog had passed away because it was so long ago. But they did reach out to us for training. And I remember her reaching out for training, but they live so far north that, I wasn't going to travel. But now I live north, and so I'm closer to them. And so they shared with me like, hey, we actually, met you at a workshop, and we had reached out to you for training, but you were living further south and you weren't taking clients this far north. And I was like, oh, wow, it's made one full circle. But this is a totally different dog. And which also brings up to my next point is that they've had 2 dogs that are reactive.
I call it parenting style. You're definitely doing something consistent. If you give people 10 dogs, they're going to affect 10 dogs, not necessarily the same way, but they are going to have an effect on 10 dogs in different ways. Maybe they get 1 right, 2 right? 3 of them have reactivity, 3 of them are avoidant. It's interesting how your style. I was trying to get a post out today on how I did an online appointment yesterday with a real type A achieving list maker, right? They live out far away from everybody. I go, people who live far away from people believe in themselves. And I go, I can see that things look like you've done well and you've achieved things. I go, are you a high achieving person? I go, you kind of type A and make lists. And she goes, yep. I go, that is the problem. I go, that mentality expects a lot from little direction. So you have these high expectations of dog behavior, but you're not used to giving small detailed instruction in these small repetitive steps, because you're used to giving a little bit of information and like figure it the fuck out is the mentality oftentimes. And as well as being very controlling and nitpicking at the same time. And so now you're trying to give your dog direction. Your dog ignores you. Now you get frustrated and you start to give more. Your dog ignores you. Now you start to correct. Now your dog laughs at you and ignores you. And it really fucks with the relationship. This was a 6 or 7 month old puppy, and she sent me videos. And the first thing I sent back, I go, does your dog ignore you at other times when you're giving direction? She's like, yeah, because I could see it. You could see that this desire to be in control of this dog was leading to the disconnection from the dog. And when you get that, it actually enhances avoidance to these epic levels, just like you're describing. And I don't think people realize when you ask, you never get free training. So if you're trying to get your dog to do something and it doesn't do what you wanted, it still learned something. You know what I mean? It did not learn anything. It learned, I'm going to ignore you and I'm going to walk away and turn my back from you and practice that. Avoidance is rampant, dude. I think that's the little energy everybody misses, like understanding boundaries. It's like they can't see it.
Yeah.
So it fucks with people hardcore.
On our membership site, we had Eileen Cronin from Baby Pack Leader come on as like a guest speaker, guest trainer. And she was talking about how it's really important to like understand the boundaries. And like, when you had Michaela and we had our kids, our dogs really understood what boundaries were because we were already implementing boundaries, right? So introducing the kids wasn't a big deal. But what she was saying was that like she has these 4 levels of freedom. Like, they can be in a crate, on a cot, like place, some sort of threshold that you can't cross. And then I forgot what the last one is. Anyways, but she was saying that as we start, introducing these boundaries, people don't recognize that. And they see their dog as happy and, running around and jumping all over the couch. But then you insert a newborn into the picture that's laying on the couch that is, and the dog doesn't understand a boundary, then the dog becomes frustrated, right? And then the baby becomes the target of that frustration, right? And so I'm bringing this up because, she was also kind of sharing her story about how when she got into dog behavior and when she started work, because she was on Caesar's show. She was on, you met her on you did a call with us one time. Okay. And so she was also, and the reason I'm bringing this up also is because of, she went to Caesar's show, Caesar rehabbed her dog, then she was so all in, and that's how she met Lynn. But she had decided, she took in a dog, like to foster, like a temporary foster that was going to be transported. And she's like, I had the dog on the bed the second day, like all this other stuff, and that the dog was in a crate. She was taking her dogs out. The dog hits the crate, opens the crate, goes after the dog. She's splitting up the dog fight, puts one of her dogs in a crate. Meanwhile, this dog goes after her and drags her like 8 feet and mauls her. Okay. And so she talks a lot about that PTSD, right, of all that. And there's an article on it. She wrote an article on it. And then so she ended up calling Lynn because she wanted to continue on like what she was kind of doing with Caesar. And that's how, they met. And Lynn wouldn't take her. Lynn says, "You're not ready yet. You're not ready yet." And and she actually talked about how, how hurt she was by that. But at the same time, she understood why Lynn was doing that. And then she ended up working with Lynn and, spending like 12 weeks, did the 12-week program with him, and how she just shifted. Honestly, I don't know why I'm bringing this up. There was a reason why, but I forgot. But it's a really, really fascinating story how she got mauled and now she's able to help people.
Well, since this kind of has an avoidant theme, one of the things you were talking about kids and dogs that often happens is the dogs get frustrated because there's not boundaries and they don't understand it. And you said, and then the kid becomes a target. I think one of the things parents do constantly they don't understand is the dogs get near the kids and the parents are real inconsistent with this boundary thing if it's there at all. So the dog starts to get yelled at when the kid is near them. And they start to associate a lot of pressure from the child. Not that the child's putting the pressure on the dog, but when the child and the dog get near each other, a lot of pressure goes on the dog. You know what I mean? Like auditory, everybody's yelling at the dog, grabbing the no. And so then the dog's like, okay, best thing to do is to stay away from the kid. So I'm going to start to keep distance from the kid. Well, then the kid starts moving real freely and agile and starts to move towards the dog. And the dog, I believe a lot of nips come from this dynamic because the dog's like, dude, you got to get away from me. Because when you get near me, I get in trouble. Mm-hmm. Because the humans don't see how they inadvertently create avoidance in so many areas because they don't understand that walking away is not acceptance. They don't understand that you have to have acceptance. Avoidance isn't okay, right? I mean, avoidance is not okay. And so people can't see avoidance just like they can't see boundaries. And that avoidant relationship with anything in the house is not safe at times, especially when it comes to our kids, because at 2 years old, when they're fully moving and they're face level on the couch and, they're just, next thing you know, they're right at the dog and the dog didn't have time to get away. Pop. And it's kind of like that. Now you need to get away type of behavior and that. And then of course the parents are quick to correct behaviors that they need to be, come here, slow it down. It's an interesting thing to see how much we love this creature and how little we really know how to communicate with it and therefore live with it. It's interesting, our affinity for this animal. You give me somebody that owns a turtle, they're going to start to be like, okay, so when he puts his right paw forward, like this, it's like, it means he's happy. They fucking know what that stuff means. They've spent the time to learn about what it means when their snake's tongue flicks to the left. And yet we get these people that bring dogs in and they're like, well, no, he just needs love and time. It's like, fuck. No, we can do better than that. So that's what's so interesting about it.
Oh, here's another thing. We're talking about avoidance. So I told the owner, I was like, look, there's going to be a point where he's trying to avoid whatever it is at the end of the street. Like we were walking down. I don't know why he's avoiding whatever it is, because he is an avoidance. Like when we're walking and he's trying to shut down, he's avoiding something, whether it's a leash or me or whatever it is. And that's the other thing. I actually started walking him on the long line, so he's like further back. And I said, look, I'm going to put some pressure on him to get him to keep moving. I go, but ask yourself, this is a question I want you to ask yourself. Is he safe? If the question is yes, then we keep moving. Okay? Meaning, is there a threat? There's no reason why he should be nervous or threat. So ask, is he safe? If the answer to that question is yes, then we keep moving. If he's not safe, then we move the other direction, right? But there's no reason why he's avoiding whatever it is he's avoiding. He's safe. I'm not there to harm him. If he's avoiding me, the leash is not there to harm him. And so that's kind of what I've been carrying with me is like, is he safe? Yep, he's safe.
So what are you going to use to interpret his interpretation of not safe? Anything? Or are you just his reaction to move away? Are you now saying now he doesn't feel safe?
Well, there's levels of the avoidance, right? And so the level of it's a low level avoidance that I can carry him through that he feels comfortable with, right? But let's say he has a reaction like he did yesterday, right? We start to move away, but then we go towards it. We start moving away, we go towards us. I'm keeping him moving so that he's like, so I'm able to bring him up and then bring him down. But I'm using the movement to go back, like swinging him back and forth. Until he gets to a point where he's like, this isn't so bad. I was like, it's not, you're safe. You're with me. Like, I know it's hard that you're having to go through all this, but you're safe with me. I'm not going to hurt you. That little chihuahua is not going to hurt you. I know you wanted to go away. We'll create the space, but we're going to, Lynn calls it the Goldilocks, right? Get them to a point where, they're not having a big reaction, but you're not so far where they're not having a reaction, but it's that sweet spot. So I take them in and out, in and out, in and out. And then we get closer and then we can move away when he starts to bring his energy down.
You had a good post the other day about movement, like how movement changes mood.
Motion changes emotion.
Motion changes emotion. So explain why you're so focused. For people listening, you've been talking a tremendous amount about getting this dog moving, right? So avoidance, I explain avoidance in 3 stages: low, medium, high. Low is kind of just, stationary, but maybe pulling back. Medium to me is moving away. And then high, sack of potatoes type of stuff. And I explain it to people, you're motivating something, nose, eyes, ears, stimulating, exciting, motivating, trying to motivate the brain until we go through all of that. And then we have to help move it a little bit. So why is the movement so important in what you're doing? And this is also why it's fucking ridiculous to try to explain this when you're trying to explain what you're doing to help. Think of the questions people get. How do you help a dog? And think of what you've been talking about, Art. As you're explaining it, I can see you in your head, like you're picturing what you've been doing, and I can see how you've been taking the dog, but it is so hard to explain how to deal with avoidance to people. Very, very difficult.
Well, his avoidance is stillness, right? He struggles the most with avoidance when he's still. So when I have him in the back, he's on a cot, like he's just like, I want nothing to do with that, right? So I'm using the movement to kind of get him over that hump, so to speak, so that he doesn't, because the thing that he's reacting to, and that's the other thing, he reacts to his vocalness, his size, his forward motion to create that space. But it's all based out of avoidance, right? People see the aggression, they see the forward movement, and they're like, oh my God, my dog is vicious, or that dog is vicious, but he's avoidant of that thing, right? He wants it to go away. And so, because he sees it as a threat, but my goal is to convince him, to make it his idea that, no, it's not a threat. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use movement. And so if I can, that's the other thing. I'm always trying to keep his head on a swivel, but straight. Because the moment he looks this way, nope, come back this way. The moment he looks this way, nope, I use the leash to guide him out. And that's the other thing I told the owners, like, I want his head to be moved just completely straight right now. I don't want it to do anything but just move and look straight. So the minute he does this, come on, stay with me. Looks that way.
Where does he go from looking? Does he go from looking to shutting down?
No, he goes looking to want to move forward with something. Because he's I have this on video too, where there was a runner running by, and I have him on a long line. I see the runner coming. I was like, oh, he's going to struggle with this one. So I kind of shorten up. I'm walking. And then he sees the runner. He does this. And I just kind of shift his head this way. And then he goes, oh, okay. Almost like, thank you for taking that burden away from me in a way.
You need to walk with me for the cyclist out here. Because that's exactly how I feel when all these fucking cyclists come at me, dude.
I know how much you hate cyclists.
Dude, I need you to be like, come on, buddy, let's go this way. And you're like this, show me. And be like, here, take a look. Dude, it's...
but it's just like in our own life. If I'm having a bad day, I just got to go move. I got to do something physical, moving. And so this guy has... And with the owners, because of how... the reaction is scary to them, right? And so like, oh, let's avoid that. And I was like, look, there's times where we are going to avoid to create that Goldilocks, meaning if there's someone walking towards me on the sidewalk, I'm going to go across the street and work it from that distance. Because if I can't work it at that distance, when it's less, there's no way I'll be able to work it over here. So there's no way I'll work it. Let's go work on this distance first. Let's master that. And then get them to where we'd be closer. And that's actually what we did when I first met, like, Anne and Nala and him, is like, go across the street. We kind of walked back and forth, and I started bringing him closer, working him through, and then to the point where he's like, oh, no big deal.
Did you choose Nala for a reason?
Yes, because she's the least react. Like, she's just whatever. And she's a really good, like, she's an incredible dog. She did get, I told you this, how she had it was a couple of nights ago where she was, excuse me, I'm not crying, I'm not getting emotional. I'm actually just getting a little congested here. But a couple of nights ago, I was getting the kids ready for bed, and she's just like wincing and a lot of pain. I was like, holy crap, what the heck? She ate dinner, like totally fine. And I was outside, and she didn't want to move, and her back legs were shaking quite a bit, and she was just like not want to move. So I texted Anne, I was like, hey, can you come outside real quick? I need your help. So I put up all the dogs, and then she goes outside, and she doesn't want, if Anne is around, like she'll move for Anne, but she was like, did not want to move. So then I was like, well, let me kind of like pick her up. She screamed like I've never heard her scream before. I was like, oh, she's in a lot of pain. Like something's going on. So ended up having, she was able to walk to the car, had to pick her up, in which she did not like. She was screaming. Put in the car, go to the vet, and they're like, yeah, I think something's wrong with her spine. We'd like to do some X-rays, and they had to sedate her, because she was just they couldn't pick her up. And come to find out, she had something with her disc. Like there's like 3 discs. They're like 2 like by the shoulders, which we call her saddleback. Her back kind of does this, and so it was like by her shoulder. She had one that's kind of like a disc is kind of like messed up, but the furthest one like close to her hip was kind of out. That was hitting her hip, which is causing a lot of pain. And so I have the X-ray.
Pain is brutal, man.
Yeah, so they put her on some pain meds, which really helped out. But I also ordered a laser a vest that she can wear that I feel is really going to help her out. So she's actually been doing pretty good. She's off the pain meds, but she's been like kind of running around. I'm like, please don't move. Like, just take it slow.
Can we go back to something like when you first started talking and you started to clear your throat?
Yeah.
You said, I'm not crying. Do you think that was related to the story you were about to tell?
About what?
All that.
I don't know. I mean, I literally just, maybe, I don't know.
That's
something Lynn would say, by the way, just so you know.
Check this out, dude. The guy, I'm going to go back one step. There was a guy that works on my car. He was over here talking to me. He was at one of his neighbor's houses, and she runs a little daycare out of the house, and she had a bunch of dogs back there. And she's like, oh, the dogs are friendly. Well, one of the dogs run up, a big dog, bit him in the leg. And he had to, and then all the dogs wanted to group up on him. So he had to defend himself with his tool chest. And he's standing out front on my patio, and he's talking. And then he shifts and he goes, oh, let me tell you. And then he tells his story. And at the end of it, I go, how do you feel, bro? I go, how do you feel about that? He's like, dude, I'm still fucked up about it. I go, yeah, I can tell. So it's like emotionally we'll do things like that. When I was first learning to meditate, and I've told the story, I was deep into meditation, a dog barked, and I started coughing. And at the end of it, the lady's like, can we go back to that? And I go, yeah, what? I started to cough when the dogs bark. She goes, yeah, dude, you don't like coughing, right? Or you don't like when dogs bark and vocalizations. I go, no, I can't stand it. She goes, yeah, you had to reject that.
Maldonado, or what's her name?
Joe. She goes, so when that went in you had to reject it and get rid of it.
Probably.
I'll never forget that. And so I'm always like, and I hate that little part, like you said, because it gets disarming when you think somebody's paying attention to all those little nuances. But it just so happened that you went into a pretty heavy story after doing that. I'm like, come on, what is he going to tell me?
Yeah. I mean,
it's weird how our bodies tell us how we feel, like, and how we might be feeling this or feeling that, and
Yeah. Oh, I know. But yeah, it was kind of, here's the thing also, as this was going on, I started thinking the worst, like, oh my God, what it's going to be different with 6 dogs.
Yeah.
I can't lose this one. I mean, eventually we're going to lose her, but she's an amazing dog. Like, she's like, I call the most instinctual dog we have. She's a pure dog. She's never like jumped on people. She only really gets excited for Anne. Mm-hmm. We've never really had to have a leash on her. She's just like,
when dogs are in pain, it is very, very difficult for me. Yeah. It's almost like I'm feeling it. I can handle a lot of different things and be real stoic about a lot of different things. But when a dog is screaming and writhing in pain like that, that is tough, man. It's like when your kids are like that. There's something about pain that it just requires like an extra year. How'd you handle it in the moment? You feel like you did pretty good?
Just like anything else, I avoid certain things when I was at the vet. So I was kind of like on my phone, she was just, and then she was in the back, they took her to the back. And by the way, I tell Dexter all the time. I'm like, dude, I get it. I know, like, I'm an avoidant person with certain things. And, I understand like why you're avoiding. I'm not trying to force you to like these things, but they're not there to hurt you. And that's something I've told myself. Like, am I in danger? No. Can I get through this? Yes. So, that's kind of like how I go through my head. Everything I do with the dogs, I try to apply to my own life as well.
Do you think you're feeling okay about it? You kind of accepted where she's at, or?
Yeah, I mean, she's coming around now, and like I said, we're gonna get this vest, which we're gonna try to bring the owner on here to talk about it, because I'm super fascinated about it, about how the laser therapy. It's a vest they wear. It's a laser therapy. How and why that helps, and I'd like to bring. His name is John. I'd like to bring him on. I had a really long conversation. I've had 2 really long conversations with him. And he wants to come. I invited him to come on the podcast, so he said yes. We just got to kind of schedule that in. So I'd like to have him on here.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. And plus, you're going to be a great testimonial because you'll be using it in real time and be able to ask questions based on your experiences and stuff, how it's working.
Dude, he has a video on there where it helped a dog with megalosophagus. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, that's supposed to be an incurable type of thing.
Yeah, and so they have this dog they've been working with, and they use the vest for actually something else, and the dog is actually starting to be able to swallow now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, real crazy.
Huh.
So, yeah. And there's other things too, IVDD, which is what our dog probably has, the spine thing. And usually dachshunds have it. And so, dachshunds are prone to getting this because they're long spine and extra vertebrae and whatnot. So, we're going to get it for her as well. But also I learned that the wrap that they use, I can also use it myself. So I've been having some shoulder problems through jiu-jitsu, and he's like, yeah, you could totally use it on yourself. So I'm excited.
Well, that's interesting. If that works, yeah, I'm having something similar over here.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, good talk.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. And please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Again, we love the comments. I last episode I actually called out some of the listeners, so they were kind of excited. I got some messages about that. They're like, oh, you mentioned my name. Thank you. So awesome. Have a good one, Todd.